Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the case of Nevaeh Kingbird. And this one is truly mind-boggling because I'm not sure what I think happened. And it's just made me feel weird when I was researching it. And you're going to understand when I'm presenting it to you. You might have the same feeling. But this is an unsolved case, unfortunately, and I can't remember where I heard her name before. I think a creator made a video about her a long time back, but she is someone else that has been on my list to talk about for a really long time, so I figured it was a great time to talk about her case. With that being said, all the links that I used for research will be down below like always, and let's get into this. So, Nevaeh was only 15, so very young, when she went missing on October 22nd, 2021. The year she went missing, she actually lost her best friend to suicide and then lost another one that October. So that year was just a year of grief for her. Her sister, Lakayla, said that this sent her into a downward spiral and she began to use alcohol, which she was using the night she disappeared. The night she disappeared, Nevaeh told her mom, Teddy Wind, that she was going to the movies with some friends. Lakayla says Nevaeh and her friends got kicked out of a party in Cass Lake and ended up back at Nevaeh's home in, I am so sorry if I pronounce this wrong. I'm going to take a pause and see if I can try to pronounce it off screen. Okay, I'm going to take a stab at the name. Bemidji. I am so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. When their mom called home while at work, no one answered. She called again, and Nevaeh finally picked up, but she was slurring her words. So Teddy came home, and she started kicking people out like any sensible mother would. So cops were on their way. I wasn't sure if Teddy called them. I assume so. But the cops were on their way, and Nevaeh ran out of the back door with two other people. They stopped at one other home before Nevaeh ended up at another friend's home at Southview Terrace Mobile Home Park. And Nevaeh had climbed through the window to get inside. Her friend's stepdad came home and Nevaeh got scared and took off. She was last seen around 2 a.m. on October 22nd, 2021. And this is actually a quote from Lakayla. And she says, "They were telling me over the phone that she ran away, and I let myself believe that because it wasn't our first time. Me and her both ran away before, but then I also had the negative side where I was like, something doesn't feel right." End quote. Nevaeh's phone was found stuck between the bed and the wall of the last place she was seen, so that friend's house where she climbed inside the window and then took off because the stepdad came home, that is where it was found. She had left behind all of her clothes and belongings as well. It was a month later that investigators finally began to reach out to the family. Detective Sergeant Dan Seberg with the, I'm so sorry, Bemidji Police Department. I know that's not how it's pronounced, but that one really stumped me, so I'm sorry. But he said although Nevaeh was reported as a runaway, it's entered into the system as a missing person. Seberg said that patrol officers went searching for her the night she disappeared, but a ground search wasn't conducted until December after investigators learned she had jumped out the window and, according to a witness, she hit her head. Since, there have been multiple searches. So, I guess when she was going out the window because she was so drunk and she's scared, she fell and hit her head on something, and that could have caused some kind of damage. It could have eventually caused some sort of maybe concussion. So that could have been potentially life-threatening. So in September 2023, the biggest search ever for an indigenous person in Minnesota wrapped up in, I'm not going to pronounce it again because I feel like I am just butchering it, in the town where she is from. Volunteers came together with local, tribal, state, and federal investigators. They were looking for clues of Nevaeh and two others, Damon Boyd and Jeremy Jourdain. Volunteers blessed searchers by smudging them. There were more than 100 volunteers, and they conducted grid searches for over 150 acres. There were canines, ground, aerial, and underwater searches as well. It was the 13th search for Nevaeh at the time. The terrain that was covered was rough, with fallen trees, branches, and heavy brush. There were also tall grasses that were very thick as well, so it was just not an easy place for them to search. But they all pushed on, in a line, arms length apart, checking every corner of the area. And you have to think about like how exhausting and how amazing that is as well, that there's over 100 people that are just arm length apart searching every single bit of area for 150 acres in this really rough terrain. It's amazing that all these people were willing to come together to do this for Nevaeh, Damon, and I'm sorry, I need to find the name again. Jeremy. I almost said Jordan. I did not want to get it wrong. So, the police department said some items of interest were collected for testing, but I could not find what it was. So, I assume they have not released it, or if they did, I couldn't find any information on it. So, I'm not sure if it's like clothing or some kind of DNA. I'm just not sure. So, I'm so sorry. According to MMIR, Minnesota's missing and murdered Indigenous relatives, Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people make up 1% of the population, but are 8% of all murder victims in the state. Native women face murder rates more than 10 times the national average, according to Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women. And I wanted to include that in here because there is the possibility that it wasn't, she was drunk, hit her head, she ran into the woods or something, concussed, and died. There is the very potentiality, I'm not sure if that's a word, that her friends could have done something. Part of me, when I read it, was kind of like, maybe they said, like, when she went out the window or she went back outside and she hit her head, maybe they were setting up for, in case her body was found and there was some kind of damage to her head and they had something to do with this, maybe they were setting up for the fact that that could be accounted for, that could be explained away. That did cross my mind, so I did want to include that little statistic there because there is an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and people in general. It's just an epidemic, so there is always that potential that something more heinous could have happened. And she also, like I said, could have hit her head, wandered into the woods or something, and died. We don't really know, and I really don't know what I believe, but I did want to include that little bit for you. So the description of Nevaeh is that she is 5'4", 120 pounds, with black hair with blonde highlights. She may have been wearing a red sweatshirt with a Chicago Bulls logo and headdress around it, and jeans. So the police department for where she's from, I'm not going to say it again, but the number for them is 218-333-9111. Again, the number is 218-333-9111 in case you have any information. So let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think could have happened to Nevaeh? Do you think maybe it could have been more sinister and like the friends were maybe like setting something a little more heinous up? I want to know, like, why was she the only person that ran when the stepdad came home? Why was she the only one that was scared and took off, But yeah, do you think it was something more heinous? Do you think she just ran off because she was drunk and maybe out of it? What do you think happened? But please be respectful and let me know your thoughts down below. And if any friends or family come across this, I just want to say that I am so sorry. I hope that you get answers soon, and hopefully she can be found alive and safe and well, and you guys can just get the closure that you guys really deserve. That's going to be all from me today, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Nevaeh's story, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye, guys.